Hey everyone, welcome to My Big Story with Christopher Swan. Before we get in the show this week, just a quick reminder about our name change. If you've been a listener of Living Your Journey and haven't heard yet, we changed our name. The show is now called My Big Story with Christopher Swan. It's all the same great content with shiny new packaging and a clearer focus. This is the weekly show where I talk with amazing people that are living a life of intention, creating a life they love, and where we can learn from their stories. On the show this week is pop singer and producer, digital creator, and wildly popular a cappella YouTube artist, Peter Hollens. And let me tell you, everything Peter does is awesome. If you're familiar with him, then you already know he creates amazing music and videos, collaborates with a ton of great artists, and is a powerhouse of creativity. That's everything I knew about him before our interview. Here's what most may not know about Peter. He's also a pivotal digital influencer and business-minded artist. In the creator revolution that we're in, he's not only mastering how to succeed in the social media and digital platforms, but he's also advising companies like YouTube and Patreon and teaching other creatives how to navigate their careers in these spaces. This conversation is definitely like going behind the business of an online music and YouTube career. This is a great way to get to know Peter differently and to have a better understanding of making a creative career online. Plus, Peter's a great guy. I could keep talking to him for a lot longer, and I'm so glad he's sharing his business and music story with us. Everyone, meet Peter. Peter, it is so great to have you on the show today. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely honored to be here with you.
So this is such a treat for me because I love what you're doing in music and like what you're creating, the space you're creating in music, and also kind of in this digital world, this new digital model. So I think it's really exciting to be able to maybe talk about both of those things. But before we get into maybe the digital piece, let's get into maybe some of your career first. So I've read a little bit about you that you went from behind the mic to singing competition to starting your own music career. Could you tell me a little bit about kind of that transition, how that happened?
Yeah, well, I mean, the road that I've taken the last 10 years has been one that I never saw coming and one that I didn't purposely try to achieve. I promised myself early on when I was doing my last quote unquote real job that every penny that I made in the future would be one in which was part of the music industry, whether I was performing, recording, or consulting, but just basically I just promised myself. I like basically walked out to my boss and I kind of walked out of the job. I was just like, not that anything happened. I was just talking to myself in my head, like I'm sure most of us do. And why am I sitting here making pasta? Not that it's a bad thing. I think I was making money so I could help subsidize my college tuition, and I just said this is enough. And I promised myself I'd start doing just music from now on. And back in 2002, the best way that I figured out how to do that was kind of balancing performing, and I started loving the studio, and I purchased myself a home recording studio and started recording people. And so from then it just kind of organically happened.
I think also you were kind of doing the, like you said, the recording piece, but I don't think you were actually doing the singing or the performing yourself, but then you transitioned to that. What was that about? Like, how did you go from, I'm behind the scenes to I'm in front of the camera now?
Yeah. Well, I was actually contacted by the producers of the SingOff, which was a reality TV show on NBC, and they wanted me to help get a group together for them that actually didn't really even involve me. Actually, two groups, a female group and a guys group. And I was recording my collegiate a cappella group that I had founded at the time, and I wasn't in college. I was removed. And basically, they didn't want to do it. I convinced them to do it one by one, and they asked me to come down and audition. So I ended up being on the show, and I ended up being basically their lead singer for most of the pieces that we did. And kind of that experience gave me a different viewpoint. I mean, I was surrounded by, hundreds of incredibly talented people who all wanted to be a solo artist. And so I think coming out of that and kind of watching myself on the show and for the first time ever really seeing how people interacted with the TV show, like on Twitter. I was like, literally the reason I signed up on Twitter was because people were actually trolling on me. And so I wanted to respond to them because I thought that would be fun. And after that experience, I kind of decided to stop recording other people and start recording myself. And I have to be completely transparent. I mean, I got my degree in vocal performance, right? I was a trained operatic classical singer. I always loved to sing. My wife almost basically forced me to sing on cruise ships in between recording stints because she's also a professional singer as well. And I know cruise singers get like the bad rap, but it's actually a pretty cool gig. So, I mean, I was performing. I just didn't have any delusions of grandeur of making a career out of it because, gosh, you can't make a living in music, I mean, the 2010 version of me sure as heck didn't believe so.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with the standard practice, I think, of what we hear. And I've heard this from other musicians as well. They're like, I've talked to them and said, so what advice would you give somebody who wanted to start in music? And one person actually said, don't do it. Like, if you actually want to live, you want a living, don't do it. Unless it's really, really tough. And you have to do it totally different than you used to. So I could see how you probably would think that, in 2010.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And my mother and my father both, they basically got their doctorates. They were about to, and then my dad got brain cancer, and they kind of had to stop that. But they're very, you have to get a real job. Music's not going to supplement your lifestyle. So, I was conditioned that way growing up. And just like almost anyone else for the last 4 or 5 decades, we subconsciously just believe that we have to go the label route if you are to actually make a living.
Here's the thing, because I knew that you were, classically trained and you actually have this talent. Was it natural for you to be like, yeah, I'm going to be in front of the camera, I'm going to do a cappella. That's the thing I'm going to go on versus any kind of other arrangement?
Well, I mean, it just made perfect sense to me since I already knew how to create such a high production value in that really niche genre. Even right at the end of 2010, when the end of the SingOff was happening and I started really convincing myself to try this, it just made perfect sense to go with something that I'd already been doing, that I'd already put in my 10,000 hours and then just teach myself video, just like I taught myself audio. And there was one other person online that was doing this in the same genre, and me being who I was back then, which was much more arrogant. I've definitely been humbled a lot since then, which is great. I was like, I can do this better than this person. So I, being really competitive, I just, I started doing it.
What humbled you? Like, what were the moments in that was it like that? Oh, I'm going to be so much better than this or that person, and you weren't? I'm just curious. Like, what pushed you back down a little bit?
Well, I think anyone that makes a living in the public eye, you very quickly get served, daily.
Yes.
And you, and truthfully, that was a small part of it. A larger part, truthfully, was collaborating with a lot of these artists who, quite frankly, well, I mean, they were just better people than me, especially at the time. I mean, I believed in my heart that I was this great person, but I didn't act like it all the time. And I think one of the best things in life is trying to challenge yourself to become a better person each and every day. And I think I told myself I was doing that. And then when I saw and witnessed other people who were my peers, who really treated their rise to quote unquote fame with such grace, I was like, wow, I need to be a better person, and I need to I need to act like these people act, because what a better way to live life. And not that I was like, it's just, I think early on I carried a lot of just needing appreciation from my peers, especially like in music. I didn't have a lot of confidence as a kid, truthfully. I mean, I was like that kid that just got totally bullied and picked on my entire life, and so I think I really lacked that, and so I was immature socially. And so, I mean, I'm talking 2010. I mean, I'm basically almost 30 years old, and I just feel like I've grown leaps and bounds since then. Not that I'm any angelic person now, but
no, I understand though. I would imagine it's new territory when you move from, doing this like real jobs, or you're behind the scenes, and now all of a sudden you're in the public eye and you have a lot more eyeballs on you. Like there's this kind of internet fame piece. There's these elements that go into it that it's how do you even react to that? It's unless you have somebody who's showing you, or you can see what other people are doing. It's a weird space to be in. I don't think that people that are not in that space understand what that's like. Do you think that's true as well?
Oh, absolutely. I think you're spot on. I think it's really easy to look at, people who have an enormous amount of influence and fame at a young age, and whether it was because they didn't have a great upbringing, it's very challenging to take that, because you get surrounded by so many people who are yes people, that you lose track of quote unquote reality, and I think it's very easy to get a small taste of that even in my world. Not that I'm even by any means like anything like that, but in regards to like fame or influence, but it changes you. It changes you because you're constantly getting this enormous amount of dopamine every single time you release a piece of content, and that cycle, that really cyclical cycle, that it challenges you. And I think if you don't have that base, it's difficult to stay, focused on what's important in life, which is, in my opinion, family and true friends that love and know you for who you are, not like what you are outwardly as a product, so yeah. And that's why I live in Eugene, Oregon, in a cul-de-sac, and not down in LA, because I do try to achieve that,
I actually kind of love that too. I share that with a lot of friends and family as well, where I live in the heart of the wine country in California, and I do not live in LA, and it would be so much easier to do what I do down there. But it's a balance, and you can have a different life. And I love that you said the product. You refer to yourself as that. I think there's a lot of truth in that, and it's perfect too, because I've been thinking about this for a bit. I mean, you've become very popular online, so you definitely have this influence. And when your stuff comes out, you have a huge following, and there's a connection, and you have real engagement too. It's not just lots of people that are following. You talked about like staying, or like still remembering what's important, which is family and friends and all that. But also, there's an art to what you do. You're not just a business. You're creating real art, this music, and something that you clearly must be passionate about to do. As you've grown with this influence, which is, I would assume, almost turned into a full business now, how do you stay connected to that path of producing stuff that you really love, or staying true to the music that you enjoy?
Yeah, terrific question. This treadmill that most of these digital creators are on is only speeding up, and so it's a very difficult task to not just see each individual piece of content as it's just something I need to hurry up and spit out and start on the next one. I think I lose track of it quite often, actually, to be perfectly honest. I think the first time in a few years where I really focused and put that last 95, 96, 97, 98, 99% of effort and love into a product was into a product. See, I'm already going to like the business route. Was the Christmas album I released last year.
Yeah.
I was I'm just I put so much love and energy and time into that, and it was really nice, truly, to deep dive into making that as quote unquote perfect as possible, and really connecting with it as an artist, and not just as a almost like an internet marketer of music, because it's because it's very true. I am a business. I'm a digital media company. I'm a brand, and it's hard not to lose sight of the art at times, for sure.
I think you just said something that was important too, that with a Christmas album, if you're making an album versus releasing, this is my assumption, by the way, so you really correct me if I'm wrong, because I clearly did not produce music. But if you're doing an album, there's a time commitment to that as well. You have to really be investment of, planning it out, thinking it through, all these different things. And I think you even did I think you even requested, feedback from your followers and fans of what they wanted to hear. So there's this whole true engagement project you have, versus if you have a track that you're releasing every week, that's kind of more of the, I got to get it out. I'm going to do it. I'm going to have fun, but I'm going to get it out, versus this other things like this, like almost passion project, because you are so invested in the time. Is that kind of true as well? Like it separates it?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. It's funny because the analytical business side of me would say that albums are done. Like there's no reason to make albums anymore. You have to have these this drip content.
Yeah.
And so my artist and music heart decided to disagree with the analytical business mind and create this this Christmas album, because I'd always wanted to, and I've always asked my community what songs they'd want, for years. And so I had this terrific Google spreadsheet with, tens of thousands of votes over the years, and a good understanding of what people wanted to hear. And I just decided to do it. And I was crazy enough to create a music video for every single song on the album, and release more than a music video a month, between basically November 1st and Christmas.
Yeah, that was intense. I mean, just from, as a creator, I could look at that and think, wow, that man is busy. Like that's what I kept thinking about you. I'm like so talented and so busy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very easy to get lost in the quote unquote work, but it's not work when you love it, right?
Yeah,
like there needs to be a different word to describe being able to do what you love.
And I would also say from like a fan perspective of music, when I put myself as that listener, like I'm probably so old school because I love albums still. And I get the whole drip content, like you need it to be constant because you need to be in front of people. But the thing as a fan of music, what I love about that is a lot of times albums are stories, and it's a time and place in an artist's life. And you can usually hear that connected story, which you don't get as much in the other drip content pieces. So I would think for the probably the small minority of people like me out in the world, there's probably a real appreciation when you do something like that as well. So it's probably not just for you, but it's for others maybe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. And I think, I could almost say, break it down, that breaking point truthfully is, how old you were when Napster basically came of age, right? So I would say that like there's a breaking point somewhere around like a 35-year-old and above that do, from like a majority standpoint, truly appreciate traditional albums, and then the inverse of that being people who are much younger, who take an album, break it apart, never listen to 90% of certain songs, and just create their own Spotify playlist and don't care at all what the artist created. So it's interesting, the dichotomy between the generations because of technology and what it's done. It's allowed me to have a career, but at the same time, it has like ripped apart kind of the old way of creating these. I guess quote unquote like works of art. I guess if you think of an album as being like a passion project. So
sure. Well, let's actually talk a little bit about just part of that technology piece, because I've been really curious about this. So you produce music, but you produce a lot of videos, and a huge part of your space is YouTube. So YouTube is especially crowded, and it's crowded with teens and the young 20-year-old creators, and they have a lot of young audiences. So, you're obviously fairly young still as well, but you're also not a teen, and you play in a very different space. But I'm curious, does this crowd of young creators, teen creators, does this impact your approach as a creator? And I think you're in your 30s, as a creator in your 30s on YouTube.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's tremendous pros and cons in that. I mean, obviously, it's very easy to assume that right off the bat I'm in a tight spot because, if I was a 16-year-old pretty boy, my job would be a lot easier to get eyeballs because it would be a lot less about. But I don't want to like completely go there. But
I'm following.
Yeah. But at the same time, I think it's pretty fun being my, mid 30s and knowing, knowing that like I can kind of work with my peers and kind of be a little bit more like a respected father figure instead of just someone their age that's going to maybe, take advantage of them or not give them the due diligence or value back in like collaborations. I think it's very easy to get lost in the music is this competition that it's all about awards and how many songs and such that you sell, and it's a lot easier for me, being my age, to kind of give much more value back to each and every single person that I come in contact with in my my little tiny little niche pond industry, kind of like this YouTube cover artist. And, I've always put relationships and knowledge first and money way, 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 way in the back in my priority list. And it's really done me a solid. But I can't tell you that it wouldn't be a lot easier to acquire fans if I weren't younger, because I can literally look at my my analytics right here on my YouTube app and click on audience, and 8.5% of my audience is between 13 and 17, 35% is between 18 and 24, 32% is between 25 and 34, and like everything else is pretty much non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
So the YouTube audience is definitely a lot younger, so it does encourage me to consistently stay innovating and following the trends that I am seeing these quote unquote kids that are half my age do, and it's fun. I love that challenge, but it definitely is a necessity for me to do so, because no matter what, I have to keep reinventing myself and re-strategizing. And I love that. And I love that it's constantly changing because it keeps me on my toes.
That's a great way to look at it too, versus the trying to compete with these younger creators so much, versus like, hey, it's a great way to force you to innovate. Even though you probably like to do that anyways, you sound very energetic with that. Like, I think that probably keeps you going, but it's a great way to have a perspective of it. I want to talk a little bit about just going a little bit deeper, not YouTube specifically, but kind of like this digital model. We kind of hinted on this a little bit too about, creating now with the internet and all these different pieces and the way that we can connect with music and share, that it's created, a place for you to have a career. There's a lot of entertainers, musicians, actors, all these different folks that don't know how to use kind of the digital platform in the way that you're using it, because you've really kind of adopted and understood it. Did that come natural for you? Did you kind of feel like, yeah, I got this, I know how to do all this stuff? You mentioned earlier before our conversation that you're a little DIY. So was that just stuff that you self-taught? Like, how did you get into that digital model and understand it?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that I don't think all these other people are doing it yet. They're not doing it yet. They will.
Yeah.
I think the future is very much where I'm living and how I'm running my business. I think it very much will be heading that direction. Actually, I guarantee it. The future of entertainment lies in not only digital influencers, but in very small companies being created vis-a-vis the internet and going directly to your community. I don't think that it came easy to me. I think, growing up as this dorky kid who didn't have a lot of friends, I really fell in love with communicating with people vis-a-vis, my keyboard and the good old dial-up modem, and my dad's, 888 logging into like a bulletin board system.
Yeah.
I started there. I continued there. I feel very comfortable communicating with people online. And so I think maybe it came slightly more natural to me because I do love being in front of a computer and I do love communicating with people on mobile and providing as close to a digital handshake as possible.
So this is the future space, right? But it doesn't come natural for everybody. So for you, what was your path to get into that? If you didn't know it, but you naturally wanted to be in front of it, how did you actually start to master using digital spaces to help your career?
Man, I saw it as a challenge. I saw it as a game. It's a huge game to me. We have all these numbers constantly in front of our face. It's kind of as though I'm like a character in a video game and I'm trying to level up. And there's all these other people and we're online and it's like a big player versus player world and it's like a World of Warcraft. I mean, I loved it. And I loved strategizing and seeing how to get these bigger players to share my content or to communicate and engage with me. And early on, I game the system, man. I love it. Everything I can do to figure out a way to communicate with someone that I think would enjoy the content I create, or to provide value to them, so that maybe they would eventually want to check out my music or share it. Or I mean, in the beginning, I just thought it was just so fascinating and fun. And I mean, gosh, I never really thought about it, but I just really believed in, I guess, what I created, and I knew it had value, and I knew that if I got in front of enough people, that enough people would like it, so that I could keep on making it. And I don't know why I just assumed that. I think if you really want to be a creator and you love what you do, I think you have to just have complete and total, unadulterated spam ability. Like when I first started, I just I texted everybody, I emailed everybody, I told everybody, and I knew that I might lose friends, but if I ever lost communication with somebody because they were upset that I was sharing what I loved the most, then they're just not somebody that I want in my life. Mm-hmm. Because in the end, like, I want to help my friends, I want to help my family, and if you don't get that back from your circles, then I guess it's the best way to vet the people you surround yourself with. So yeah, it was challenging. It was a game. I'm competitive. I love learning. I love innovating. I guess that came natural to me.
Yeah. So I think the world mostly knows you as a musician. They know you as a performer. They know you as the singer, as an artist. And that's how I saw you, really, when I first learned about you, and until I started to really dig through, and I was like, wow, this guy is so business savvy and focused. I'm wondering, how do you consider yourself? Do you call yourself an artist? Are you like an entrepreneur, or like how do you look at your world, or do you package it in any way, like label it?
Yeah, I think initially it was really hard to like fill out that LinkedIn bio, right? You know, like
Yeah.
what is it that I do? Because I feel like it doesn't give justice to just, you know, be like YouTuber. I would say almost every successful digital creator, unless they truly just stumbled into it, is an entrepreneur. It's impossible not to be. I think it's now being an entrepreneur is like the cool thing to do. I think it's very easy to say you're an entrepreneur when truly you're just a wannabe entrepreneur. But I think these digital influencers who have millions of fans, every single one of them are, by any definition you look at it. So I fell in love with learning the business side. I fell in love with learning how to market myself. I fell in love with social media. I mean, social media is the internet now, in every sense of the word. And I love figuring out, you know, how platform X adjusted their algorithm and how I now can adjust what I'm doing to you know, get shared more, or to be seen more. So yeah, I definitely consider myself a business-minded artist, and an entrepreneur, and you know, I love helping people. I love consulting my peers. It's impossible for me not to like word vomit coaching to any artist that I'm talking to. Literally, I got on a phone call. I got on a Skype yesterday with somebody that I'm doing a collaboration with for Carry On My Wayward. I always, is it Carry On My Wayward Son or just Carry Wayward? I don't know where. Anyway, and he's this awesome guitar player, and he was about to sign a deal with a multi-channel network, which is kind of like a music label of the YouTube world.
Oh yeah.
And absolutely no musician under any circumstances ever should sign with a multi-channel network. They just don't provide any value, and they take and they take and they take, and they try to, you know, 10x their company and sell it to a bigger company, and it's just the entire thing is just all messed up. So I literally just went off for like an hour. I didn't even let him talk. and you know, and he could have just completely disconnected it halfway through, and I would have had a clue. But at the end, you know, he was really grateful that I did, and I was like, gosh, I'm so sorry. I get so passionate when I see people being taken advantage of, and I know that we're in this creator revolution now, and there are companies that are basically creating the infrastructure for anyone to sustain a career, and there's specific things to stay away from, and there's specific moves to take. And I'm so passionate now, especially like the older I get, that I wake up each and every day to help other people and not just help myself and create more art. Now, I could never probably stop making music because it's just part of who I am. But each and every day I get older, I realize that there's no better reason to wake up in the morning than to help other people and to educate other people. And because I've created an entire career online digitally, and I'm on these platforms daily, constantly communicating, I do kind of know how they work really well, and I want to help people learn how to do so, because why the heck not?
That's terrific. I also read that you were even helping, like you've been helping Patreon, YouTube, and a few other platforms really kind of even figure out like what's next or how to help creators better.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think it's important to see the companies that are providing value to people like me, and basically donate my time to try to help them and give them perspective that I think is necessary for the growth of those companies.
Yeah, I think that's smart, and it's also good for you. Hey, back to your music for a moment. You've become this business now, and you are producing a lot of content. How much are you involved now in the overall production of your work?
Definitely, to expedite my workflow, I have put people in my production funnel as much as possible. And I've taken myself out of as much as I can, being the tiny little dictator and anal retentive person that I am. But I would be lying to you if I were to say that, any aspect of my business, from concept to execution and creating one of my pieces of content, which is my product, that I'm the best in the world at. So it's so vital for me to work with other people that raise the potential of my end product as much as possible. So I take myself out of every aspect, not only to expedite it, but also to create better content, better product. So initially, I was doing everything, and now, I'm the executive producer, and I record everything.
Sure.
And I give notes on everything along the way, from, arrangement. I'll pick the song, I'll record the song, but like, I have an arranger now. I have a nice amount of editors that help me edit my audio. I have mixing engineers. I have mastering engineers. And in the same funnel, like video wise. I'm no longer setting up a music stand, focusing on the music stand, moving the music stand, running back, going, "Oh crap, I didn't start recording it." And I'm not doing that anymore, right? But I now get to work with people who are much better than me in all these facets, and I get to learn with them and actually be around other people when I'm creating art. In a lot of the time, instead of being like this hobbit, which is what I have been for so long. So it's nice. Yeah.
I think it's actually super smart that you brought that up, that it was about it's not that you're just stepping away, because my first thought was, well, gosh, do you lose like the connection to that input? But in fact, you can actually up your game because you have new talent coming in that's helping you like think differently or force differently. I love that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And truthfully, the younger version of me wouldn't have allowed that, whether that was being too ego driven and wanting to do it all myself and like saying I did it all myself. But gosh, the more you work with other people, the more you learn. And the worst thing is that you create something and no one listens and no one cares.
Has that ever been a problem, or like when you first started out, to like when it was crickets, or has it always been just kind of like
Absolutely.
steady?
I mean, I started with nothing, right? I mean, I can't say that. I had a couple hundred people that had friended me on Facebook, because that was the only social media site that really had my name, even though like I wasn't public to the internet, because back then I was like all still sketched out about my identity, and that quickly changed. But and
yes, clearly
people still found me. And so I had a few hundred people that were clamoring for content. And so, sure, I started with about as much as a head start as maybe, a semi-popular kid in high school, because I sure as hell didn't have more than like one or two friends. It doesn't come from nothing. I didn't start from nothing, but I sure as heck, the first video I released didn't get 1,000 views in the first day. I mean, it pretty much might as well have started from pretty much scratch. But I had the opportunity to be somewhat of an innovator on YouTube, because I did start trying to make a living on the platform by the end of 2011, and almost going full time about April 2012, which is a lot earlier than most people. But dear Lord, if I would have started back in 2007, 2008, what I would give. Oh my gosh.
Yes, I think that's like, isn't that kind of like Tyler Oakley's story? Isn't that kind of like where he came from?
Well, I know Tyler decently well, but I haven't paid attention to his story. I do know that in my own vertical, if I would have started when Boyce Avenue started, or Kurt Hugo Schneider, or Tyler Ward, I would be in a much different place.
Sure.
But I'm very lucky and blessed that I did start when I did.
So, okay, you're married, your wife's also a performer and a singer, and you have a young son in the house. So now family. This creates a lot more commitment of your time. And during that time, you've become more popular and busier. So what about balance? How are you balancing things in life now?
Yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to find the quintessential right balance. I think it's very difficult. I think it's quite impossible for Peter Hollens to be able to balance out family and work. I don't think I'm ever going to find the right work-life balance, but I'm sure as hell I'm going to always know that it's an important aspect, and to try to keep on spinning those two different plates the best of my ability, and to always communicate and check in with both my digital audience and my wifey and son, and it's so hard. It's so hard. I have gone from making my hours be from the second I woke up to when the sun started coming back up, to one in which I have to make it home by dinner, or I'm going to have a very interesting conversation to deal with. And I think in the end, I had to make some changes to my business, right? I had to start bringing people onto my team, because I so believe passionately in responding to every single person on every single platform that communicates with me. And that's becoming harder and harder to do, even with more and more people. But I will, I'm going to die trying, because I think it's just so important to stay in contact and to keep communicating with each and every single person that walks into my digital store, right?
What keeps you energized?
It's so easy to just stay so inspired by my peers, the people that I have the honor to work with on a daily. There's just so many more talented and intelligent people in the world that I am lucky enough to surround myself with, that it's impossible not to. In addition, obviously, the community that has surrounded themselves with my work, but in and of itself would keep me going, because I don't know how you couldn't. And so much so that like I've overcome, normal things, but like huge depression runs hardcore on my father's side of the family, like just like deep mental illness, which is such a bummer. And I didn't really get to escape that. But in all of this turmoil that I dealt with my entire life leading up to where I am now, it basically evaporated, because I get to do what I love for a living, and because I'm so rewarded for doing so. It kind of just like everything started clicking. So to answer your question, it's impossible for me not to be inspired and continue what I'm doing.
That's a great way to look at it too. Just like it's almost like a will. You can't, like you've been willed to do it. You mentioned that, like, even the mental illness. We don't have to deep dive in all that, but it just made me start to think about, like, what are the things that hold you back? Because you can be inspired all the time, but also we have moments where we're just like, I don't know, stuck or something that gets in our way. Like for you now, what kind of holds you from doing something next? Well, at least one very normal thing is just having so much to do sometimes paralyzes me. And I do at times have problems with that. I very quickly early on decided to kind of like bypass the normal thinking of that quote unquote being mentally ill was this is huge no-no. I mean, if I have to take, a pill every day to reach my potential, like, oh, God forbid, darn it. It's like, it's so silly how that's society puts such a like a huge faux pas in having mental issues, but physical issues are totally fine. Mm-hmm. So it's so silly. And so, one part of
the things that I absolutely love to communicate with my fans about it are their mental issues that they're overcoming. And I couldn't tell you how or why I attract so many people that have so many problems with mental illness. And I think it's really fascinating, truly, because it's something that I've always fought with. And so that's, I don't know. I mean, that's a different topic for something. But some of the songs I'm actually going to release on my original album I said album, but are, really deep dive into real life,
Really?
Yeah. I mean, why write love songs? Those have been done, right?
A lot.
You can keep doing that. And and in the end, like, it's much more important to write about things that can help people. And so that's the kind of music I'm trying to create now.
It must also feel like even just meaningful for you. I mean, it's got to be, especially as we get a little bit older, and you have a son, you start to think a little bit bigger than us. Does that play into kind of how you start to write music as well?
Absolutely. Gosh, I think anyone that has recently had a child, it's very easy for you to then look back and see the total black and white difference between where you were mentally before and after. And it's impossible for that not to affect your musical tastes and desires. So absolutely. And I so desperately want to create like a Lullaby album. Mm-hmm. I would have never wanted to do that before. I think any father or mother who has gone through their first or second, or any child, knows how we desperately need some type of go-to music to help us with the transitions at night or in the middle of the night, and it would be, and how cool to create that content yourself, so that that what the love and time you put into something like that is what your children are listening to at night, and that you can be that for another family.
Okay, I just love that you just said all that, and I'm going to plug this in here that I desperately now want you to collaborate with stand-up comedian Jen Kober. She was on the show and said, I just don't know why, but desperately, I really, really want to create a children's album. And she was like, no, seriously. She's like, do you remember the ones back in the day in the 70s? She's like, they were amazing. She's like, I just think there's something that we could do with that, and it could be fun. So please do that with her. That would make me really happy, because she's hilarious, and I think you guys would be funny. So anyways, you heard it here first. I'm asking you to do it. Peter, this was amazing. I could talk to you I could just keep talking to you, because I have like a zillion more questions that I'm sure the listeners would be completely bored with, because I just want to know personal stuff now. I'm like, okay, tell me, can I ask you this question? But this has actually been a lot of time, a lot of great time today, just going through all this stuff. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. Absolutely.
And I know this is, everybody could, I'm sure, know where to find you, but for the folks that are listening, what's the best place to go find you online?
The easiest way is to just go to YouTube and type in Peter, and I'm one of the first few things that show up. You have this big face of mine that's just smiling from ear to ear or something. No, but truthfully, any social media site, just type in Peter Hollens, Hollens. But yeah, try YouTube, because if you like that, then you can go down the wormhole. I have over 150 music videos, and so yeah.
It is a wormhole. I have been there for a while. I'm like, gosh, this guy just has so much content, and after a while, I'm like, I'm never going to get through all this. It's terrific, though. We'll definitely point everybody there on the show notes and on the website. And thanks again for being on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
So what'd you think? Any new ideas? Are you going to try something new? I'm always left feeling great and have a ton of ideas after these conversations. The guests are totally energizing me. Speaking of being energized, did you guys know about my Awesome Finds newsletter? Each week I share creative spotlights, meaningful stories, and new ideas to spark your imagination. And the reason I'm really doing it, I just want to share the great stuff in the world that energizes me to energize you. So if you want to sign up, or you want to find out more information about it, go to awesomefinds.info. That's AWESOMEFINDS.info. Okay, back to the show. If you want to share thoughts about the guest or how the show sparked a new idea, I'd love to hear about it. You can call me and leave me a message at 1-707-347-9312. Just include your name in a brief message, and you may even be featured on the next show. If you want to follow along with me and see behind-the-scenes fun and my adventures, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at @MeChristopher. That's MECHRISTOPHER. You can also follow Accidental Information on Instagram and Facebook at Accidental Information, and on Twitter at Accidental Info. Also, we publish original articles weekly about following your passions, getting creative, and a lot more, all at accidentalinformation.com. Lastly, if you love the show and want to spread the goodness, go tell a friend about it. As in literally text someone or go email it to them. I'd love it. Also, make sure you subscribe to receive new episodes automatically each week. Thanks again for joining the conversation. Okay, that's it. We'll talk again next week.